The Radio Misfits Podcast Network.
Qui sont ces gens et pourquoi suis-je là? Les winemakers.
Hey everyone, welcome to the Winemakers. We are in Monterey.
Live from, well, not live, but
10:55 a.m. and we're drinking wine.
Set your clocks.
Pass that bottle down.
We are just starting with our first guest. We're going big with Steve Gross, who I was just talking to him that he's got a crazy introduction here. So current interim president and CEO of the Wine Institute. Previously vice president, state relations, overseeing the Wine Institute's public policy and advocacy across 49 states. Serving on the executive board of Sonoma State University Wine Business Institute. On the board of the California Council for Environmental and Economic Balance, right?
Yep.
How the hell did you find time to come here?
I love you people.
What are you going to be talking about today?
I'm going to talk about Free the Grapes. I'm going to talk about Wine Institute. I'm going to talk about what's going on in the world of wine as far as the trade association work that we're doing. And I'm going to answer whatever kind of questions you ask me.
Cool.
I'm going to try to answer all the questions you ask me.
I know I kind of wanted to talk about the CRV thing that we all started doing. We've been adding it onto invoices when we are selling wine to restaurants. Have you seen any response from people saying that they have people going through their dumpsters, digging out their wine bottles? I was thinking that we were going to have people coming in through our glass dumpsters and taking out bottles, but it's not happening.
Well, I don't know how much on a commercial basis it's happening. It's still happening on the recycling world of, what people are putting out on the curb. I think there are people that are picking up some of that. In California, you've had a bottle deposit program for decades. It was just wine was one of the last things to go in. Wine and spirits bottles were the last things that got added. Yeah. And the consumer is adjusting to the fact that they're paying that deposit now and whether or not they're actually redeeming all of those. If you don't redeem it, it goes what they call in a sheet, which is when it's an uncollected deposit that goes into the program and supports the rest of the recycling program. But, it was part of the reason we changed our policy decision on this was we really looked at what were the other options. Because right now, what was coming down the road, California also passed the Extended Producer Responsibility Program. And every consumer good coming into California now, you have to make it's going to be in one or the other program. And the CRV program, the consumer's paying a deposit, they're incentivized to participate, to collect that, get it into the recycling stream. If you're not in the bottle deposit program, you have to pay into what's called a PRO. It's a producer responsibility organization that's currently run by a company or an organization called the Circular Action Alliance.
Cool name.
So, yeah, it is. And they are the group that's operating the PROs in, there are now 7 states that have passed an extended producer responsibility program. Oregon, California, and Colorado are the ones that are furthest out there. Yeah. So it was an option of, did we do one where the industry was completely responsible for paying for all of the recycling that was done, or could we participate in a program where the consumers were at least incentivized to be able to try and get some of this stuff returned, whether it's through I'm in Long Beach, so I have a purple bin. It was a blue bin when I was in San Francisco. Depending upon where you live, you have a different color bin, perhaps, to get it into the recycling, or you can take it back and collect the 10 cents. Now, what we found are the people that are going around picking up the stuff out of the bins are more likely, perhaps, to pick up the
wine bottles.
Well, no, they're more likely to pick up a aluminum can or a plastic bottle.
Something that's not as
if you're going to carry it around, if you're going to carry it around in your plastic bag or over your shoulder to take to the redemption center, it's a lot lighter to do those.
Yeah, you get way more nickels for crushed cans than you would for some heavy.
But you can't crush them because then they can't
They don't
scan
go
the
through the machine.
CRV.
Well, that's the real
I guess
bummer.
I haven't been doing a lot of collecting recycling for money, fortunately.
Supposedly the bottles, it's something like 2/3 don't end up getting recycled.
I honestly don't know the percentages, and I wouldn't want to go on record with it with wrong information.
Right.
But the percentages are going up.
Yeah.
When they go in, it depends on what's. I mean, the advantage of going through the CRV system and getting returned is it's a much cleaner waste stream than it is when you put it in the bin out on the street that has cardboard and plastics and other things in there.
Too,
it can get contaminated, and the glass can get crushed and stuff. It's less sortable. Let's put it that way. Once it becomes contaminated with other things, but. So, I mean, a CRV system is the best way to get clean product back to its chain where it can go to be redone. California has the advantage. We have glass plants in California, so cullet can go back to a glass plant and be made into glass, and it's a perfectly recyclable product. You don't lose any. That's the advantage of glass, but the disadvantage is it's heavy. It costs more to take it back to those places. So some people at home just choose not to do it. We have a place up in Mammoth, and we don't have the curbside through our person there, but we take it down to the recycling center and turn it in.
There's only one receptacle for you to put waste in? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Well, it's harder in snow towns.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's
there's
a
no
little
bin.
mountain
There's bare.
town.
Your bare box. You get.
Yeah, you have all kinds of different things to deal with up there.
I mean, I just looked, and it looks like there's a recycling place here in Monterey. If we want to take our bottles when we're done.
Generating some bottles so far.
Yeah.
We haven't even posted the
but
pictures.
it's only
from
about a
last
mile
night.
from here.
And
then in Sonoma, there's. I'm sorry, Steve.
I
Go
was
ahead.
going to say a lot of commercial. They arrange to have their stuff delivered to somewhere like that. You don't have necessarily restaurants are taking their stuff, but they do have people that pick up their cardboard, that pick up their glass, and some of those.
But are you saying like let's say for a winery, is it we would be doing a better job if we actually returned our bottles at the end of a month of tastings than just throwing them in the blue bin, right?
Yeah. I mean, sure, it is because it's a cleaner stream
right.
than if it goes in with other kinds of mixed packaging.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's the advantage of one of those programs. And it also there's a cost advantage there too for the wineries versus the EPR programs.
Will you explain something that I found on the wineinstitute.org? It's the Share Wine Collab.
Well, I really want to let Honor explain it tomorrow because she's coming in. Honor Comfort, who's our VP of International, our
Have we
export
ever had
program.
Honor on the show? She's ready.
No, we should.
Yeah. We'll get her tomorrow.
Okay, yeah, because she's coming in. She's going to talk tomorrow morning, shortly after I do. And she's going to talk about the Share Wine Collab. And the whole idea behind that program is a way to connect with the audience we haven't been connecting with as well as we think we can. We did lots of research and lots of work for the last multiple years of going out and trying to figure out how you get to and don't make me define what the zillennials and all these kind of different groups are, but it's
we should
Gen
have a
Zs
chart.
and millennials and even when I see the charts, they change,
Right.
But anyway.
Well, everyone's getting older and then they're in something else.
But it's how do we...
How that works, Brian.
That's crazy. Just stay in your lane.
Can't wait to be a boomer.
I've been booming the whole time, guys.
Me too. I haven't changed.
But yeah, it's how do we connect and how do we become relevant in their world? I think it's the thing. They use digital media in ways we never do. They don't work in offices the way we always do. You don't go out for happy hour after work all the time. You don't have the same kind of experiences that we had for that cohort that's out there right now. And part of the Share Wine thing is how does wine become relevant in their lives via reaching out to them through new media, creating a way for them to connect. Because I think that's the thing that when they look at wine versus some of the other drinks categories, that very convivial sitting around a table with a bottle of wine in the middle that's being shared, and you're clinking your glass and you're talking to people. There's a lack of connection within that cohort of people. They don't go out, they don't socialize in the same ways we do. A lot of them are much more isolated and insulated from their peers than we were, because they're doing a lot of things over the phone, and they went through COVID. They came into the world of socializing in a different way than we did.
Yeah, well, they had to do that. So then it just sort of became routine, I think, for a lot of them to order food that gets delivered to your house, to order clothes that get delivered.
They're lazy also. Sorry, I have an 18-year-old.
We're trying not to be derogatory about them as we go into market to them, Bart, but that's a different, there are different ways to approach it.
Hey, you lazy punk, buy my Zinfandel.
Yeah.
How's that working?
But yeah, the program is going to be there, and I'm delighted that Honore's going to be able to be here and talk to folks about it tomorrow, because it really blends right into the people that are doing the DTC thing, because part of what they talk about, it's experiences. It's these folks, they don't want to be preached to, they don't want to be sold to. It's experiential learning, and they want the story about wine and the product, and we are so well positioned to be able to do some of that stuff in the wine industry, much better than so many other industries. People love the stories about what we do and what we make and why it's different. And so I think that's a part of a very broad program, and Wine Institute has taken the lead on it. But it's something we're going to be making available both to members and non-members. We're sharing the information with the winery associations in other states, because we really think, it's a cliche, but that high tide lifts all the boats. Right. We think that if everybody can do a better job of getting our messages out and reaching out to some of these folks for whom wine has not been as relevant in their day-to-day lives as it has been perhaps in my generation, that's important. So that's what the program is about. It's really just getting rolled out. We had a lot of testing and questions, and unfortunately, our market where we were going to do a lot of that research last year, it was all set up to run in Canada, and you may be aware that things didn't go as well in Canada last year as we had hoped they would.
Have we not bought them yet?
We're going around it to Greenland.
Say nothing.
Do they like wine in Greenland? Is this a good thing?
Yeah. So
the Danes do like their wine.
We had to move the research into other markets, but it's been good. We've learned a lot. I think we're well positioned to be able to go forward with the program, and this is about kind of the rollout is happening right now. The resources are on the website. They're starting to become available, and the idea here is it's going to give tools that every winery can go on and use to incorporate the parts of it that they think are useful for them. Some of it can be some of the marketing pieces. Some of it is just how do you talk to these people? There's a lot of research there. There's a lot of bells and whistles and stuff that are going to be available to people to pick and choose what works for them so they can incorporate it into their program. It's not us running a big advertising program or something like that. What it is putting together a toolbox that lots of other people can benefit from.
Everyone's got a different situation. Yeah. Do you think this is a good time or a bad time to try and change shipping and distribution laws? Part of me says they have so much shit going on that they probably don't know what's going on, and they seem to be anti-law, anti-enforcement, being told what to do. So
hard question and hard answer, I think both. There are elements out there that are just what you're saying. They don't want to have enforcement, but there are, on the opposite side, you have the state regulatory bodies and stuff like that. That's what they think their charge in the world is to do. They've been hired. Their job is to wear a badge and enforce the alcohol laws in each of the states. And those people feel passionately that they need to do what they've been charged to do. And we have to, as the Wine Institute and other associations that are working on this stuff, have to kind of walk that balance between those who say deregulation is great, and those who think that you have to have strong regulation in order to do consumer safety and product safety and to protect kids and all that. I mean, public health and the groups that are out there advocating for restrictions on alcohol are more vocal rather than less vocal right now.
True? Is it? Has it been that way for the last couple of years?
It's been that way for a long time, and we've seen a big
temperance.
It's less temperance, but it's the folks that are looking for funding for treatment and recovery programs for all kinds of addictions. But alcohol is the easiest one for them to tax and the easiest one for them to regulate because we have the most formalized system. It's hard to put a heroin tax out there because it's illegal and nobody's doing it. And so to come up with money to do people who have an opioid addiction or something like that, it's a lot easier for folks to try and fund those kinds of addiction programs through alcohol excise taxes, and because we're already paying an excise tax. So, we're an easier target, but the voices of the anti-alcohol groups and the public health groups and things like that have become stronger both at the state and federal level as they start to go in and try to do things. And, and as an industry that wants to be responsible, we never want to do anything that looks like we're targeting sales to anybody who's underage, or that we're targeting sales to anyone who shouldn't drink because they have an addiction issue or something like that. What we want is to provide product to the people who choose to drink, and make it as easily available to them as we can without undermining the restrictions that are out there to make sure that underage kids and stuff don't get access to it. So it's a fine line to dance.
And what's the good news on that front? What's going on out there in different states that's positive?
Underage use is down almost everywhere.
No, I don't mean an underage drinking.
No,
I just mean
on everything.
Okay.
I mean, as you're now the president of the Wine Institute, we wanted to branch out from just the state, the hot state sort of discussion, the state of the states, but, especially this is the Free the Grapes fundraiser.
Right.
And so we're still going to give our love to Free the Grapes. Is there anything...
Well, there is
happening
good news.
State-wise, good news, bad news, things to
good
look out
news
for.
on the DTC front. And I mean, that's... There are... It's a part of it. I mean, part of the reason we have all the rules that we have around direct-to-consumer shipping is because of things like underage access and making sure the states get their taxes and all that kind of stuff. But the good news is, if you look at that map, there's not many red states left. We're down to Delaware and Utah. And Delaware tried to pass a bill last year. It's just not a good bill. It's one that isn't going to work for the wineries because it got hijacked at the very end by some of our opponents who put provisions on it that make it unworkable. And I'll talk about some of that tomorrow. But the bottom line here is that we're down to just a few states that are completely closed.
Right.
We have another handful of states that still have restrictions on them that make it hard for wineries to navigate. States that have things like, Rhode Island is the last state that has an in-person visit requirement.
Right.
But we fixed that in Arkansas last year. So, I mean, we're continuing to whittle away and fix that. For the longest time, both Arkansas and Rhode Island, somebody had to come to your winery in order to place their order for the product as opposed to going online or something like that. We finally got Arkansas fixed. We're going to try and get Rhode Island fixed.
Nice.
And
my sister will be happy.
yeah, but it's those are the kinds of things where we keep trying to make it better, but there's still, even some of the new states, Mississippi just opened up, but they have restrictions on there. If you're already doing business through the state, Mississippi's a control state where the state is the wholesaler. And if your product is listed with the state, there are restrictions on whether you can sell that or not. So, direct to consumer. And we've had that in a couple other, Louisiana, you can't sell.
How many control states are there at this point?
There's 18 states plus Montgomery, or 17 states plus Montgomery County for spirits. But for wine, we're only in the control system in Utah, Mississippi, Montgomery County, Maryland, New Hampshire, Pennsylvania. Yeah. Okay. So, there's the 5 states plus then Montgomery County. So we're in a smaller subset than the spirits control states. And when I use the term control states, for somebody who doesn't understand the nomenclature there, that is where the state plays an active role by either being just the wholesaler or the wholesaler and the retailer. So like in Mississippi, they're just the wholesaler. In New Hampshire and Pennsylvania, they're the wholesaler and the retailer.
Is Pennsylvania still the largest wine purchaser on the planet? There was a time, right, when the state of Pennsylvania...
I believe it probably still is the largest wine and spirits purchaser. There are... some of the Nordic monopolies and in Canada, but I do think Pennsylvania's market is still bigger than any one of those individual monopolies, but I'm not positive. I haven't seen the comparisons of those, but for a long time they were known as, it certainly is the largest one in America, of an individual purchaser. So you have these different structures that are out there, and we keep kind of whittling away to try and make the rules easier. But at the same time, the opponents to direct shipping haven't gone away. There was a bill last year in Maine to add a provision that says if you have a wholesaler, you can't ship into the state direct to consumer. So, that's that backwards move from a state they've been open for a long time. So, we have to go in and, we play offense, but we also play defense when we go in to and protect the shipping rules so that people can do it as easily as they can. And, we're not naive. We know that having a state where you have to file a report every month and, the paperwork and the logistics to make that work, we know that that's a burden. People would prefer not to have that. That's part of the reason we go in and try to get annual reporting versus monthly reporting, or, semi-annual versus quarterly, whatever. We try to ease those burdens, but they're there for a reason. The state has to account one way or the other. But, it's a constant balancing between trying to make it as smooth as we can do it for the winery, with giving the state enough information that they feel they can legitimately collect the taxes, ensure that it's not getting delivered to kids and things like that. And, so our partnership with the common carriers is really important. Another big battle we've been having lately are with the fulfillment houses. We're not fighting with them. The states are concerned about the use of fulfillment houses.
What does that mean?
Because in their mind, a fulfillment house means something like an Amazon warehouse or something else. They don't understand the concept of a bonded wine warehouse like we have here in California. So what they think is it's somebody going on and just ordering from a retailer and having it delivered. We keep trying to explain to them that the fulfillment house is just acting as an agent of the California winery in the same way that a common carrier does. That, the pick and pack function is not a sales function. Because they see the disconnect comes when they get a report from the common carrier that shows a delivery from XYZ fulfillment house in Napa or, Santa Barbara or something that has been delivered, when the winery is reporting that the shipment came from Steve's winery.
Yeah.
So there's a disconnect there because it's hard for them to match those things up when they're trying to reconcile the carrier report with the winery report. So, the solutions to that are pretty easy. It's you have everybody put on, whoever has to report puts a package tracking number. There's a unique UPS or FedEx number or whatever it is for every package. And if they would include that in the state report, it's pretty easy for them to use Excel spreadsheet or whatever it is they're using to reconcile that this box that was delivered by XYZ fulfillment house through a common carrier came from Susie's winery, because all three of those things have the same report, the same package tracking number on it. But if their forms don't contain that, or they were never designed to get a report from the fulfillment house or something, it's harder. So they just say, you can't use them. And right now, Oklahoma has said you can't use a fulfillment house. The shipment can only come from the winery's address where they hold their federal license. And so we have to go in and try and explain that and change it and clarify it. And, we've been partnering with the folks at the fulfillment houses to go in. There's the NABCA, the Control State Association, they do a big legal symposium. There's going to be a legal symposium in Alexandria, Virginia in March. And one of the panels is going to be the folks from the fulfillment houses and the common carriers getting up and explaining how it all works. Yeah. So, we keep trying to get in and go through the minutia and the details of how that stuff works.
Well, thank you for doing that for us.
And it seems like a lot of it is, I worked for a very short time in the lobbying world. And God love them, the politicians of Nevada were making laws all the time about things that they had no experience in. They were part-time legislators. They've worked 4 months every 2 years. Yeah. How could they know how wine shipping works from between California and Oklahoma, right? So a lot of it has just be sort of explaining how this very complicated business works to these people, right?
That's exactly right. And you have to, and through the entirety of this, you have the people who are opposed to shipping, the local retailers who don't want the competition, or the wholesalers who are opposed to it, who are in there stirring the pot saying, that report's wrong. Look at that. It's not uncommon for a state wholesaler association to do a FOIA request to get all of the shipping reports, and they'll go through and they'll say, 90% of these weren't delivered from a winery address. Well, they were delivered from a fulfillment address, and it was done on behalf of a winery. And you have to go in and then unwrap that and go in and explain it and give them the data of how they can put together the correct reporting regime to be able to solve that. And, it's not malicious on the part of the regulators or the legislators, like you said. They don't know this. They don't do it day in, day out. But, it's trying to address these things. And you have to remember, too, when we passed some of these laws, it was the 80s. There weren't any fulfillment houses. Right. When we started these programs and stuff, a lot of the technology that's there right now, that you didn't have the compliance companies that are doing the platforms that have all of this data and stuff like that. There's a whole new level of technology and expertise and just interactions that are touching these packages that didn't exist before. When it started, people were shipping wine from their tasting room in a box.
Some still are.
Some still do. And we have to explain why. It's like, why? And the action from, or the reaction from others is, well, why can't everybody do that? It's because, if you have a big club, you don't have the people or the space or the wherewithal to do that. And why would you, when there's a perfectly good system of people that could do pick and pack and do all of this on your behalf, then let them do it. But, it's just going in. And the other part of this is there are people who've chosen not to follow the rules. There are people making illegal shipments. They either haven't gotten the license. The majority of those aren't wineries. I think it's a lot of retailers who are shipping illegally into states where retailers shouldn't be shipping. It's web people who are taking orders on the web who may not even have a license. So our argument is always, let's put together a program that allows you to figure out who's cheating and go after the people who are breaking the law, instead of saying you just can't have shipping because some people do it wrong. It's like saying you can't have a package store because some people sold to a minor, or somebody had a fake ID. You just have to. You have to go with a legitimate program that helps them identify what the problems are.
How many people work for the Wine Institute?
We have, I think, 35, 36 right now, full-time people.
Would you, if you had the budget, would there be more people? Could you use more people?
Oh, sure.
Yeah. You guys seem like...
we've reduced our staff. Our budgets are down because our budgets are based on...
your memberships.
On membership, and membership dues are based on sales. Yeah. And, so we've watched every year our dues go down. Just a practical application. Last year I would have told you we had lobbyists in, 49 states. This year I can tell you we have lobbyists in 45 states. Because as resources get diminished, our we have to make decisions, hard decisions about who we can retain and what we can do. Yeah. And as long as when sales go down and the dues formula doesn't change, it means we have less money to do the work we do. And it's harder. I mean, you have wineries who are up against a wall, and it's choosing to support your trade association is not always the easiest thing to do. You have to really think of is we have to do a better job of making people understand why it's important we do what we do.
Is someone like Jackson family, are they members of the Wine Institute? Do they pay dues?
Currently, they are not.
They're not?
We would love to have them back.
Well, let's put that out there.
If you're listening,
I mean, because that's I don't know how many
Gallo. The Jackson family will be influenced by the Winemakers podcast.
It's a lot of
change their.
I don't know, but you picked one who happens to not be a member right now. But we would love to have them back, and I think that every winery. I mean, we would love to have 100% participation, and you just don't usually have that in a voluntary organization. Right. And we understand that people look at the variety of associations. I mean, you have AVA groups, you have county groups, you have the state group like the Wine Institute.
You have your own chamber of commerce and your visitors bureau.
You have all of those things.
Yeah.
And,
love you guys.
But it's
love them.
But it's how do you prioritize? And it's really of the, it's playing fair because somebody if people aren't participating, then the others who are carrying the burden for their neighbors. And the best people for us to go out and make the case of why everybody should be a member are the ones who are our members. So,
well, give us the pitch. I mean, we're members for the FedEx rates, first and foremost, and obviously because we want to support and make sure that your salary gets paid. But what is the pitch to both the Jackson family size of the world, but also maybe some of the smaller wineries that are really need the help?
Well, I think that the best pitch out there right now is that when times are hard, you need to have a voice that's out there advocating on behalf of the industry to put together the tools and the resources and protect the folks that are there. The Share Wine collab that you talked about at the beginning, the whole purpose of something like that is to help people be able to reconnect and increase their sales. And when things are contracting, that's when it becomes more and more important to have voices that can be there to help the industry so that the rules don't get tightened. And it's a matter of going out there and just trying to make the case that participation by everybody means that it's more equitable for everybody. Everybody's dues if we had participation by the entire industry, everybody could pay less. That's part of the problem. But if you don't have that, then the people who've chosen to participate are having to pay more, and they're carrying the freight for the folks who are not. But at a time when, we're working on things like trade to Canada, we're working on things like the collab, which are going to impact sales. DTC shipping has kept a lot of people afloat during, unexpected events like COVID and things like that. The ability for wineries to stay open even during COVID. That wasn't a natural. They were closing all kinds of places, and we worked really hard to be able to make sure that wineries were able to continue to operate. Yeah. Those kind of things, not to mention our work on things like, the tax rates and, making sure that the dietary guidelines, which just came out, had, good science behind them. All of those kinds of things are what we do that have a positive impact on the industry. And if we don't have membership and the resources to do that work, it doesn't get done. And there really isn't anybody else positioned to do what we at the Wine Institute are doing. We're the only ones that lobby in all the states. There are individual state associations that work within their own state. And there's Wine America, with whom we partner at the federal level, but they don't lobby in any other states. So it's, there is, it's a unique position that we're in. Yeah. And I think it's an important one. But we try to, we partner with a lot of folks to try to get things done, but we have to have the resources to do it. And it's voluntary dues. Right. There's nobody making everybody write a check. So we depend upon the folks on our board and our members to help us, kind of go out there and evangelize and get others to rejoin.
Yeah, we love the FedEx rates. Are there other direct benefits that members should be taking advantage of that maybe they're not?
Well, a lot of it, we don't have that many kind of affinity program type things. And that was kind of intentional because you can spend an awful lot of money on those kind of programs that aren't all necessarily pay off and benefit everybody. That's one that everybody can take advantage of. But, I think ours is really more, it's the work we do, and you just have to understand that the work is beneficial. I talk about what we do in the other states, but, with regard to, our team in Sacramento, which they're out there every day, dealing with land use and water quality issues and, the wage and hour laws in California and privacy laws and all of those kind of things that impact what California wineries do every single day, to be able to operate and, do what they want to do. Absent that work, there'd be an awful lot of folks who would be awfully surprised at some of the regulations that have been proposed that could have gotten passed with regard to air quality and water quality and, how you do your vineyard operations and, wastewater. There's just so much out there that we're engaged in. Smoke, there's, every time we turn around, it's interesting right now. 3 of the things at the state level that we've been working on, 3 big issues weren't there 5 years ago. We're working on hemp-based THC beverages and the fact that they're out there being sold in an unregulated manner versus all of the regulations we have. They're competing for shelf space in ways we can't and stuff that have been a challenge. The EPR things that we started out talking about with regard to the recyclability and things like that, those programs, the 7 states that have passed them have all passed them since 2021. And like spirits-based RTDs, a big category out there where they've been trying to reclassify those to tax them like wine or beer and sell them in places where traditionally you would only, where as opposed to where spirits had been limited for sales before.
Right. Yeah. Because they're lower ABV because they're mixed already.
That's the theory, but
but not all of them.
But not all of them. You get a Negroni in a can. That's just 3 high spirit.
Yeah.
High ABV spirits mixed
well,
together.
And they have some of them are, they'll come in, they'll say, it's just like wine. Well, if it's a 12 ounce or 16 ounce can and it's at 18% ABV and that's presented as a single serving, that's a lot different than a 14% 5 ounce serving of wine. Right. So, but just those 3 would be good examples of the way the market has changed recently, and we're having to get out there and learn new things and address new things and work on behalf of the industry. And so it's, there's constantly evolving new things that need to be addressed.
I know it's almost like you guys, when people would notice is if you weren't there. And it's kind of weird to have one of those jobs where
good offensive lineman,
You're not getting a lot of kudos for what you do. You're like, if they only knew, if we just disappeared tomorrow, how screwed you guys.
All those quarterbacks would be flat on their back.
All right, so just tell everybody that, right?
Right.
I don't have to evangelize, but it is hard because it is, preventative maintenance is an awful lot of the work that we do in government affairs and things like that. And it's hard to tell the story of what doesn't happen.
Right.
Those are it's not as cool a story. Yeah. To go out and say, "Oh, you didn't get screwed because of this or that." And
I saved your life. You have no idea.
Yeah. So it's an interesting conundrum that success is sometimes making sure a bill never got introduced. And that's when we can that's where we are so effective because we have long-standing relationships with our contract lobbyists in all the states. And when I said before we cut some states this year just because of the budget, that leaves us vulnerable because you don't have that same person that's been on retainer for you for 20 years who somebody in that state, if a bill comes up, they go, oh, I'm going to go talk to Jim because he's the guy who handles the wine thing. Well, he doesn't represent us anymore, so maybe he's taken another client and he only wants to talk to him about deregulating the phone company or something like that. So, it's those things matter because the ability to forestall bad things is a lot of what we do.
Yeah, let us grow the grapes, make the wine, and sell the wine. You take care of that
Everything
stuff.
else. Yeah.
And you make it so we can ship it to New Jersey easier.
As you were talking, I was remembering that I had heard a few months ago that the USPS was possibly getting into shipping alcohol. Will you explain what's going on?
They talk about that just about every session, I think, for the last...
It's been
10, 15 years. There have been people who've proposed it. There's a lot of particular challenges to that proposal that we have trouble reconciling to. Because one of the things is the state governments have set up their programs so that they have laws and rules in place to govern delivery and reporting requirements and licensing requirements for the common carriers. States can do that. There are questions about the ability of a state to cite a federal employee for not getting a signature or something like that, or forcing a federal agency to file a report. And, right now, if a common carrier screws up in a state, they can be, there have been states that have stopped shipments from common carriers for periods of time as a penalty for a delivery without getting a signature, a delivery to a minor, a failure to file reports. Can you tell the post office they can't deliver mail for 6 months because you didn't get a signature from Susie? Those kinds of the ability of states to regulate and enforce against the post office have been a part of this. I think there's a lot of secondary, can a state require mailmen to get trained on how to deal with an adult signature? States like Vermont require the FedEx and the UPS drivers to go through the alcohol server training program.
Do they really?
Yeah.
Wow.
And, they're supposed to be able to identify know what a valid ID is and how that ID works and to be able to recognize if the person who opens the door is inebriated and shouldn't be able to take the delivery in the same way that if you go into a bar, they have the same responsibility that somebody who's serving alcohol or selling at a package store would have. So, can you have that? Can you tell the post office that they can't do that? And so, those are the kind of, that's the weird stuff I have to think about is,
Well, I know they need the money, but then have you ever been...
But do they need the money?
The U.S. Postal Service, have you ever been behind the counter, like gotten a passport photo taken? It's like you walked into the 1950s.
Yeah.
So, and they're like...
Do we want that system shipping our wine?
Well, and there are questions about
the Wild West,
right?
Yeah. I mentioned before we have a house up in the mountains, and so they don't deliver to our house. We have that you go down to the bottom of the hill and they have the little thing of mailboxes, the little slot. Yeah. Well, if you get a package, we live in the Booty, so I live with Amazon orders, and you never know when you place the order, is it going to come via UPS or the Amazon thing or USPS? And if it gets routed to the Postal Service and it doesn't fit in my little box, it becomes an adventure to try and figure out
where it is.
And I went the other day to the post office and sent a picture home that you're not going to believe this, because there were probably 36 people in front of me waiting to pick up packages.
With their little slip.
Yeah, everybody had their little slip, and and 20 people would hand the little slips to the person, and then they would disappear, and 30 minutes later they came back with a basket full of packages and just started calling out numbers. It wasn't the best customer experience I've ever had. And, I think you have to think, is that the way we want our stuff being handled? And
But if it's federal, if it's the U.S. Postal Service, maybe don't you think maybe they could possibly make it so that every state was the same? That they could use that as the excuse to turn it into just complete
states
same laws.
Are we about
for
to
every
get constitutional law with Steve Gross?
Right.
Yes.
The 21st Amendment.
The Supremacy Clause.
Part 2 of the 21st Amendment gave every state the ability to regulate the sale of alcohol, the sale and delivery and transportation of alcohol within their borders. So, and the purpose of that, for those of us who might have forgotten, was at the time they were repealing prohibition, there were a bunch of states that intended to stay dry. The state that ended prohibition was Utah. Utah had every intention at that time of staying dry, but they recognized that the federal government needed the resources that they could get from the excise taxes. So they were the state that gave them the 3/4 they needed to be able to pass the law.
That's such an interesting little slice of
Section
history.
2
It was Utah.
let them stay dry, and they stayed dry for decades. And I mean, if I'm old enough to remember that when you flew in an airplane over Kansas, they used to pick up all the drinks.
Really?
Because Kansas enforced their airspace on liquor by the drink to heaven.
To heaven.
Yeah, to heaven. And so, there was a time when you flew over Texas or Kansas or Oklahoma, the airlines would have to pick up the drinks.
So was everybody just pounding their drinks and then you were actually drunk over their airspace?
Probably. But those things slowly but surely, some of them have changed. But the states are not going to just willingly say, they would rather say, we won't have direct shipping.
Right.
If that's what would say that letting the post office deliver means they don't have to follow the rules. Yeah. And that's our concern, honestly, at the Wine Institute about the USPS moving into that space is how are states going to react and what are they going to do in order to further restrict what's already working with the common carriers in order to avoid having a war with the post office.
Okay, so you guys are working against that then.
We would love to see it in a form that would acknowledge all the state laws, but they haven't come up with that yet.
Okay.
Yeah, we haven't seen one that the states have signed off that they say is workable.
Yeah.
So, and until they do that, we don't want to blow up what's there.
And it's
So essentially,
really
that's
freaking
not
complicated.
happening.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't foresee that as happening anytime in the real short term. And for states to then adopt, what our biggest concern about it is if that were to just pass and they would all of a sudden announce we're going to do it, is I think there is at least a certain number of states who would simply say, we're going to shut down what's here. And we don't want to see that happen.
Yeah.
So until we can make sure that's not going to happen, we're not going to advocate for it.
It's chess, not checkers, Brian.
Right. Exactly.
Not checkers.
Seriously.
What is your role at Sonoma State with the?
The Sonoma State Wine Business Institute, they set up a program there probably 25 years ago or so, right shortly before. I've been on the board there for a very long time. But they have a program trying to become the preeminent wine business program. So they've tried to differentiate themselves from UC Davis and Fresno and even Cal Poly and some of the others by really focusing not on the wine making side of it and stuff, but by putting together a program to support the business side of the wine industry. So marketing and finance and all of the things that are particular. They put together
Was that Tim?
Tim Wallace. We had Tim Wallace on once.
Yeah. And Damien, who's down here, he's speaking on one of the panels tomorrow as the new director. He's a faculty member at Sonoma State, but he's the new director of the Wine Business Institute.
Right. I think we're going to see Damien.
Yeah. And, he came over from Australia. He's a great guy. He's been involved in the program for a while, but he's taken over the leadership. Ray Johnson was there for quite a while. You may have seen Ray at things before, and he might have been on your broadcast. But it is designed, and the board is made up of wine industry professionals with the idea of putting together a career track for people who don't necessarily want to make wine, but they want to work in the wine business. So it's about putting together a curriculum both at the undergrad level and at the graduate level to support people that want to work in the industry. And part of it is, especially for the graduate level program, of people who are already working in the industry, being able to come in and enhance their skill level through classes that are specifically targeted at the industry. And I think that was something that was lacking for a while, that you didn't really have that kind of expertise wasn't being nurtured and garnered in our industry.
Well, even like at the Santa Rosa JC or Napa College, the classes were all production and viticulture minded. They were very little marketing. And certainly the place where we need to help, I think a lot of people in small wineries, they need the help on the business side of it. Like there's a bunch of people can make wine, but they don't know how to run a business.
Well, and I think that was part of
Guilty.
it.
Guilty.
And so they had people who were, some of the people that have come and gotten through the program were the people that started out as a winemaker, but they wanted to be able to do that business side of the industry. And, it was how to have targeted education that was, attractive to people who saw the wine industry as a viable career, but, were coming from a different skill set.
Yeah.
And it's been fun to be a part of the program as it's come together and matured and stuff. I've been doing it for quite a while. So
and is there people that are going to Sonoma State and are majoring in something else, but then they're also taking that? Or do you see it mostly as people that are focused on that?
There are some people who take some of these just because they find it interesting, but it's more of it's in the College of Business. So, this would be their degree for the most part, is people who would specialize in that degree.
It's a grad program. It's
not it's undergraduate.
Oh, it is
graduate.
undergraduate. Yeah. Okay, sorry.
Yeah, they have both components, but the graduate program is very specific. Right. I mean, as an undergraduate, you obviously have to take, there's a lot of other requirements.
So you have to take math and geology.
You have to take math.
English.
Yeah, there are those things, but it's a specialization, or it can be it can be a part of your degree, or it can be the whole thing.
Cool.
All right. Well, thank you very much.
Let's make sure we get a plug in for Free the Grapes.
Free the Grapes.
Right. I know.
Okay.
Talk Free the Grapes a little bit. And then the annual question, which is, for the consumer side of our listener base, ways that they can, make sure that they keep getting wine shipments to their front door.
Sure. Well, Free the Grapes is, it's a nonprofit that we put together back in the 90s when we took a group of people down to Florida when we were first trying to open up Florida for DTC shipping. And it kind of came together that we needed more than just wineries coming in from California saying, we want to do this. We recognized that what was important, we needed the voice of the consumers in Florida to get engaged. And the best way to do that was to come up with a focused campaign on how to reach out to consumers and local media. Because we could have all the best articles in the Napa Valley Register and in the San Francisco Chronicle and in the Wine Spectator and stuff like that. But if you didn't have somebody who was writing about this in Tallahassee, in the state capitol, then you really weren't getting your message to all of the elected officials who you needed to contact. So we came up with the idea of putting together Free the Grapes, which was at that time, kind of a three-pronged coalition. It was to support the lobbying efforts that Wine Institute and Wine America were working on. It was to support the litigation efforts that were underway then, because that was when we were still working towards the Granholm decision, which came in 2004 and 5. But in the late 90s, the groundwork for that was being laid, but we didn't have that consumer outreach portion. So Free the Grapes was designed to be the voice of the consumer, to be able to weigh in, get the message to legislators and to the media that you had in-state folks who were interested. Back in the day, you may remember we had petition books that they put out to all the wineries. So when you had somebody who came to visit your winery who was from a state they couldn't receive a shipment, they could sign that petition book. And we would take those. Cool. We would take those pages and we'd walk into the Florida Assembly with a pile of petition pages. Eventually, you came up with the Internet of Things. And we were able to put together the ability to have a consumer go to a website and fill out a form that says, I live at this zip code and I want shipping. And that would allow us to target a message that went to their assembly person, their state senator, the chair of the committee that we wanted to hear the bill, the bill sponsors, all of that kind of stuff. It was able to do targeted media and consumer messaging. And that was the whole concept behind Free the Grapes, was how to engage consumers in the effort to, as we say, augment the three-tier system, not replace it, to allow consumer access. And so what happened, instead of California wineries coming in saying, we want to ship, there were local constituents in Florida or Mississippi or Delaware, wherever it is that we're working, that go in and say, I want to receive wine from California or from New York or from Washington. And that's what kind of turned it on its head, was that they were hearing from the people who voted for them instead of from us.
Yeah.
So.
And who designed the logo?
Jeremy Benson, who was the head of Free the Grapes for a long time at Benson Marketing Company, came up with, we named him Shackles.
Shackles.
And he was Shackles the grape. And he...
What variety is Shackles?
Pink. Yeah. And so, it was a great campaign. And it's the partnership. I mean, the DTC Symposium is a fundraiser for Free the Grapes, and it is the biggest annual fundraiser for that group. There are still some wineries still pay dues into Free the Grapes voluntarily. The Napa Valley Vintners and the Wine Institute, in addition to sponsoring the DTC Symposium, both write a check to help support the work of Free the Grapes every year. But, this is by far the biggest fundraiser for that organization that keeps us able to have that consumer and media engagement at the local levels. So when we're working a bill, it's the local media instead of just the out-of-state stuff. Yeah.
You ever thought about making a Shackles stuffy? Like a
beanie bag?
A beanie bag, yeah.
I think
like Shackles.
I think he who says it should handle it, Bart. So next year I will be happy to schlep beanie bags for you if you want to build them. But
Shackles the beanie bag.
I don't see that as my
highly collectible.
Let's get to Jackson.
Trust me, I understand.
States to
Right, exactly.
New stuffies. We look forward to talking to Honor Comfort about this, about the new program.
The Share Wine program.
Wine program.
It's going to be great.
If you guys, listeners, if you want, you can go to wineinstitute.org and kind of play around a little bit.
Yeah, you can see a lot of the resources are right there. And again, like I said before, they're available. We hope you're a member. We want you to be a member, but we're making this available to the industry because we think retailers will be able to use it. On-premise folks, there's a lot of folks that can benefit from this.
You still give the really nice metal signs.
We have the blue metal sign, if you remember, that you can put up in your tasting room.
Okay, well,
we started to save some money and not do those, and people were very unhappy that we weren't making the 12-pound metal sign.
I have distinct memories of the Wine Institute member sign that hung at Kateri Winery in my uncle's office next to his motorcycle or something like that. There's great signs.
We still have the signs, I do believe.
Good.
Cool. Thanks, Steve.
Thank you, Steve.
Thank
Happy
you.
to do it. Thank you, guys. You guys do a great job. It's fun to be here, as always.
Freethegrapes.org.
Nicely done, Bart. Thank you. Little Dane Sellers Carignan.
Thank you.
Keep
Thank you
this
very
day
much.
going.
Where are we?
DTC.
Monterey,
California.
Monterey.
Who are we?
We are the winemakers.
Okay, good. All right.
Well, Sam is a winemaker.
No.
No, Sam's CEO.
Don't get us started. And we're continuing our conversation that we were having with Steve Gross yesterday. So we have Honor Comfort and Mark Barden on today. And Honor specifically, we were told by Steve to kind of follow up with you.
He basically punted some questions and was like, we'll let Honor take care of that. Very un-Steve-like, to be honest.
Well, thanks so much for having us on.
Yeah, and is your title still Vice President of International Marketing?
Yes, it is, as of today.
Okay. Very nice.
Hopefully going forward.
Okay, cool. Yeah, and we realize we have some, you've been a Sonoma person for a while.
Yes.
I knew you look familiar, and so we got to chat a little bit earlier about some of our connections.
Yeah, 26 years in June, living in Healdsburg, and I'm a very loyal and proud Sonoma County supporter.
Yeah, you are.
So, yeah.
Cool.
But really happy to be here. Great to be in Monterey, but really fun to be sitting down chatting with all of you. So thanks so much.
And Mark, you're a consultant to the Wine Institute.
Correct.
And we specifically wanted to talk about, because this is, we're just sort of learning about the Share Wine Collab. And it sounds really interesting and something accessible for those of us in the wine industry. So Steve said, let you break it down A to Z, soup to nuts.
Yeah, happy to.
Let us know what we can do.
Happy to. Well, Mark and I have really developed this together. It all stemmed from a project where actually the leadership of Wine Institute asked us to dig into and better understand what was going on. This was back in January of 2023. And they asked us specifically to focus on the segment of consumer audience that at that time, none of us were really understanding why they seemed to not be engaging with wine. So this is what we've termed Zillennials, because they're later Gen Z and younger millennials. And they sort of cross those two groups. But what's important about this cohort is that they have a lot in common from a lifestyle perspective. And most significantly, they're unlike any other consumer group that we have dealt with before, but they're like every consumer group that we'll be dealing with thereafter.
And is that specifically because of digital?
Exactly. Yeah. And their relationship to their smartphones. And it really shapes how they see the world, how they see themselves in it, how they engage with each other, how they make purchase decisions, where they get their information, how they validate those decisions. It's fascinating. So we jumped right into it. I called Mark. Mark's worked with me on all of the strategic work that I've been doing for California wines since I've been at Wine Institute. And together we decided that this was really something that we needed to dig into and better understand. And through that, we started by doing some of our own proprietary research and pretty hefty qualitative study, because we recognized that in order to understand this group, we really needed to start not with their relationship to wine, but with their relationship to the world and to each other. And so we did a long series of focus groups and one-on-one discussions. And coming out of that, we got a lot of insight into their values and their lifestyle. And then that led us to validate that with some quantitative data. All of this fed into building really a strategy that is focused on how we collectively as the wine category can connect and engage with these consumers.
Can we ask, how do you get a focus group together? Like, how does that start at the beginning? Do you say...
And does it pay?
Do you pay people to come in?
It depends on what you consider payment.
And where are you doing it? Sure. Is it a room? How many people do you get in the room? What kind of questions do you ask? It's fascinating.
Yeah, how it starts is that we placed a call to Paul Peterson, and you found Paul, right?
Yeah, so the way it works is, there are companies out there in the world who just have databases of human beings, and you tell them exactly who it is you're looking for and what the project is. You define it down to the nth degree, and then they'll email them, call them, text them, and say, "Do you want to do a focus group and talk about your life?" And we all got on Zoom together. So we'd recruited. I'll talk to you about the recruits. I think this is kind of marketing nerdy stuff, but it is actually quite interesting, I think, the way we approached it. So we wanted to split the population of the people we were talking to into two. We had a group that we called wine catalytics. So these are people, they're not experts in the way that you guys know them, not enophiles, but they're engaged in the category still. And so they're the ones that would say, if you come over to their house for dinner, they'll tell you about the wine. I've got this really great Dane cellars, and they're into it. And then we have a second group.
Can you say that again?
a little plug for you there. And then there's a second group that we call the lapsers. And these are people who've expressed they're drinking less. They like wine, but they're just not as into it as they used to be, and they're losing interest. And so we did qualitative research, which means you're doing one-on-ones, and then you're putting together focus groups of like 4 or 5 people, and you're getting a conversation going, just like this podcast. Tell me about your life. Yeah. Tell me about your drinking habits, all that kind of stuff.
And the reason why we worked with this gentleman, Paul Peterson, with Coin Jar, is that he's actually based in Petaluma, And he had worked with some wine clients and worked in the wine category earlier in his career. So he had a lot of familiarity with wine and with the culture, et cetera. However, more recently, he's been working specifically with the same audience segment, but focused on digital engagement and gaming and digital platforms. So he was experienced with better understanding this consumer segment. So he sort of married those two things together. We worked really closely with him and we built out the approach. And after each of the sessions, we would tweak it and adjust. And we had creative that we shared with these groups, and they were all happening virtually. And the reason for that is we wanted to ensure that we had geographic diversity, that we had ethnic and racial diversity. They were all within an income band, but there was a lot of diversity. So it was really a cross-section. Each of these conversations was a cross-section slice of this audience that we wanted to talk to. It was fascinating.
And who comes up with the questions?
We did together.
I tell you, here's a really, in fact, I'll ask you guys this question. So we want
I love this part.
Yeah. So we wanted people
better than when
to
the guest
show
asks the
up and
questions.
tell us who they were. So how do you get that sense? So he said, pick 3 photographs from your photos reel on your phone and share them with us as the story of who you are.
Oh, that's awesome.
What 3 photos would you
so
choose?
Interesting.
Yeah, I mean,
Put
I'd
you on the
have,
spot
I'd
now.
have to go through my
Yeah.
photos and take a look, but I don't think it would be anything close up of me.
Exactly.
It would probably be
How many
something,
close-ups of you do you have in your phone, Brian?
I don't have.
So
a lot.
no dog lips in front of the mirror for you?
Yeah,
Yeah, some
Yeah.
mirror selfies for sure. Couple mirror fit
but
checks.
probably doing something that I was enjoying at the time,
Right.
in a cool place.
Right. So
Exactly.
So the point of that exercise partly was when human beings get together, they kind of can't help but be interested in that. Which 3 pictures did you choose? Why? What's that about? So you get them talking about themselves and their lives. And as marketers, we're listening for what are their interests into which we can put the wine conversation. So we're not saying, let's start a conversation about wine. How do we sell wine to you?
Yeah.
We're saying, tell us who you are. What are your values? What are your life? What do you care about? What's life like for you in 2024? Mm-hmm. Which, by the way, is not easy. Right. So we had, the conversations were a little dark, actually, at times.
They were dark. And but it was also so remarkable because this group was, this sort of age segment, they were remarkably optimistic. Because there's the sense that they could do anything.
You remember
because
being
they had
in your
all
20s?
the information at their fingertips,
Yeah.
on their phone, on their digital device. So it was this really interesting sort of dichotomy of a sense of life is hard, financial pressure, time pressure, not enough time with their families or their kids or their friends. But if I could just do this, this, and this, I could have whatever life I want to do. I could go live anywhere. I could work and do, and so that was really interesting. And the big aha wasn't that they had anything against wine. It was all really positive. And in fact, they gave back to us all of the standard messages we've been sharing about wine for decades. But they said, yeah, wine's great. And it's, it makes things special and you want to have it at a special dinner, but it's just not for me yet.
Yet.
And that was huge.
Yeah.
Because they were like, that just, I'm not quite at that point, or it feels a little complicated, or it seems expensive, but I want to be there. And they really saw wine as a marker of achieving that point in life.
Aspirational.
Totally.
Right.
And when we started doing this research, we were all a little dejected because we were like, where's the big answer?
Yeah, can we hear something new, please, about
and then
wine?
we realize it's in front of us. It's right in front of us. And what they want is really exactly what wine offers, which is the opportunity to sit down, enjoy life for a moment, connect with someone that you're interested in or that you have a great relationship with, and just savor the moment.
Yeah, so...
But they don't see that as part of their life yet.
Do you think part of that was price prohibitive? That maybe we haven't hit that level yet where we can buy a $70, $80, $150 bottle of wine and sit down and relax? Or was it just that they didn't see themselves in that situation?
I think it was a combination of a lot of different factors. And this is where it started to fragment a little bit. And, certainly $70, $80 bottles of wine. For some, that's within reach. For others, they were feeling like, ooh, I don't know if I want to spend $10 on something that I don't really know. Okay. Like, how do I know what's right for me? And so it became obvious that there's this whole world of wine culture that's interesting to them, but they don't really know how to get in there. And more importantly, and this is sort of the second half and what we were talking about a lot today and where we go with the collab, is that once you understand this, what they're looking for and what they want and what's driving them, then we need to understand, well, how do we get in front of them and share this story and invitation to come into cool wine world? How do we get that in front of them? And that's where we then shifted and started to work with some other people outside of wine that specialize in connecting with the consumer and audience that you want to reach. And that's where it starts to get really, really interesting. And in particular, we were working with a group, they're called Vittoria. It's these two great guys. They worked with Wyden and Kennedy, which is an agency up in Portland. Mark used to work there, which is partly how he got into all of this stuff. But they focus on, it's like they mash up data and media insights together so that you understand exactly who you want to reach, then how to get in front of them. So we've worked with them and gotten so much information at a really deep level that isn't available to most of us in the wine community. And we recognize, like, this information is too good not to share. And that was the inspiration for the collab.
Oh, so you guys were doing this research before you even thought of the collab?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Oh, okay. I thought it was the other way around.
No, we started doing all of this work because within my role, I'm building campaigns to reach this exact audience out in the rest of the world. Because for California wines to really grow and thrive, whether it's in the UK or Japan or Australia, this is the target audience that we need to reach. This is where our big opportunity is with California wine. But as we were digging into it, and we're putting all of these learnings and the strategy to work in other markets. Just next week, we're launching a really significant campaign in the UK to test it. We were all teed up to go into Canada until that kind of went pear-shaped. Yeah. But
oops.
We so that's where it started from. But as we were going through it, we realized there's so much good information that people within our wine community can put to work for their own brands that we have a responsibility to get it out there.
So then how do you think of how you're going to build this thing?
The collab?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, the first version of it, version 1, is already up and running. So we think about this, perhaps the easiest way to picture in your mind's eye what this is like is it's a masterclass for marketing. So on the collab website, there are 8 videos, each about 10 to 15 minutes, that breaks down one of the components of the share wine strategy. So understanding these human beings that we're talking to as human beings, what do they value, what do they care about, what are their lives like, how do you put wine into it, and then working all the way down through their media choices, so how do they show up on YouTube and Instagram and Pinterest and so on? And what is the right way for wine to insinuate itself into their lives through the channels that they are using? And also think about things like, Anna and I talked about the fact that this generation in particular has almost like a hive mind. Right, so they're not individuals; they're one organism that lives online.
It's because they're constantly, even if they're sitting together, they're texting each other.
Yeah,
right, or they're sending something that they saw on social media. Yes. I have an 18-year-old, and I've been around he and his friends recently. It's mind-boggling the way they do that.
Yeah,
and that's the only thing they've ever known because they've had them since day one.
Right. That's not weird to them. That is their life. That is how
weird
they
is
interact.
Weird is hearing that someone's like, I'm turning off social media for 6 months.
Yeah. Right. That's weird.
Why would you do that?
Because they're so curious, right? And the world really is at their fingertips, and they want that. And so they're always looking for information from all these different sources, and it's really, really interesting. Just that insight alone is a great tool for us within the wine community, because one of the things that's our strength is we have this remarkable diversity, right? There's a brand for everybody. It's just getting in front of them so that they understand what makes your wines and your place and who you are kind of cool or relevant to them. You know, it's like your winemaker is super into rock climbing. Well, there's a whole rock climbing community that, you know, they can talk about rock climbing. And then it's like, oh, and by the way, I also on the side make this really great wine. I like wine, you know, and like that's how it starts. As Mark was saying, you don't come right at them with wine. You start with what they're interested in and approach from that perspective.
Kind of like, what is it, Calif family? They're really into cycling.
Yeah. There are all these different angles, right? Because, you know, winemakers are people too. And have interests, as you all know, right? Beyond what you do.
So can I just to continue, because basically we want this to be a commercial for the collab, right? So if you're listening to this, please go to the website, the Wine Institute website, and you can find your way to the collab and sign up there.
I just signed myself up. It was very simple.
Thank you very much.
And the best thing is it's completely free, right? There's no charge. We're doing this as a service and a benefit to the wine community as a whole.
Do you have to be a member of the Wine Institute?
No, you do not.
Wow.
And that's why we have, if you are a member, that's great. And you can enter in using your existing member ID. But if you're not a member, you just create an account. And the reason why we're doing that is that this was developed for wine professionals and for the wine community. And in this day and age, we just want to make certain that we're protecting ourselves with all the information that's out there. It also gives us the opportunity to then create this community, communicate out with you guys, and let you know the events that are coming up, the sessions that we're doing live online, and also because one of the reason why it's called the collab is that it's a bit of a play on collab because it is truly collaborative. But at its heart, it's a community laboratory for the wine community to test, learn, and experiment how we all level up our marketing.
Did you guys saw Elaine speak yesterday, right? She talked about in the 1880s phylloxera and massive crisis, as big a crisis, possibly bigger than the one that we sort of face now, and how the community rallied together with, what was it, California?
Yeah, that was the early
Association.
That was the early precursor.
And every brand got to remain its own brand.
Right.
But underneath that, all the infrastructure stuff they collaborated on.
Right.
And I thought that was just such a great story, which I had not heard before. But it's exactly what we're trying to do in 2026 with the way we want to approach marketing. So all the brands that are listening and taking these webinars online in their own time, whenever fits their calendar, are responsible for figuring out how to use the insights that we're bringing to bear to work for them and their business. Because obviously everybody's businesses are completely unique, very different customer price points, etc. So the specific solutions will be quite different. But the infrastructure on which it's built, the principles of how you buy and think about using modern media to reach this audience, and the way that you activate community engagement and collaborative processes that they use to make decisions, that's all there and going to be consistent for years to come. So it's very much what we're doing now is very much in line with that response to phylloxera and the response to prohibition and the response to 2008 when wine clubs were born, I think Elaine said. So it's trying to learn from each other as much as, what Honore and I have built.
It's coffee.
What is that? It doesn't sound like a wine you're drinking, sir.
Coffee. Day 2, coffee.
There you go. One of the things that we recognized right off the bat is that there was a lot of discussion around, okay, wine marketers, you need to get out in front of these consumers where they are, meet them where they are. Yeah. And then that was sort of the end. Right. And we realized, wait a minute. Yeah. What does that mean?
And where are they?
And where are they? And then how do you do that? Right. And when you are there, how do you show up? And we just kept digging deeper and deeper and recognizing that we had a responsibility to share real and actionable information with the wine community. And that one of the beautiful things I think about wine is the remarkable range of our businesses, from single entity cooperators to big global companies that have deep marketing teams and tons of assets and everything in between. Right. So we factored that in as we thought about this, and we really wanted to make certain that the information that we were sharing was usable and actionable, whether you are, a small mom and pop shop or part of a global marketing team for a major wine company. And there's definitely something in there for everybody. And we structured it to be that way with assets and information and tools that you can download. We end every session with next steps and, one thing you can do today to get started, and to sort of break down that sense of like, oh God, it's so hard. Where do I start? And I've been there. I understand. We have our own small wine brand that, we're working to sell as well.
Daniel. I'll just give you a little plug there,
Thank you for the plug. But anyway, so
available.
Wait a minute. That is you, isn't it?
Yeah, that is us.
I forgot that.
Yeah. So it's...
Give yourself a little plug.
What is
it?
The Daniel wines?
Daniel Wines, DanielWines.com. So we're a very small brand, and all of our wines are, we're really fortunate to work with very specific vineyards, one of which is our own Fiano Vineyard in Dry Creek Valley. Uh-huh. But we also work with Grand Vent Vineyard and Petaluma Gap. We work with a great vineyard up in Mendocino, on Mendocino Ridge, Pearly Vineyards for their Chardonnay. And we make very small wines that are from places that deserve to have a wine made that expresses that place. So, our big sales push is to sell to people we're not related to. And we've got a great little wine club. And Dan Fitzgerald, who's my stepson, is our winemaker. He makes wines and works with a lot of different producers and different vineyard sites. He's got a great background. It's a fun family project. Cool. Me and my husband, Dan, and his wife, Barbara Fitzgerald. She's also an certified Italian wine specialist. So we're all in the biz, and this is our side gig.
Cool.
Yeah. Nice.
And are you guys gathering data as people are using the collab? Is there something where you can see how many times people viewed this specific portion? And is it going to be fluid? Are you going to add on things as needed?
Absolutely. This is a dynamic and collaborative process. So one whole piece of this. So, we describe it as learn, test, and share.
Cool.
And so we're all learning together. We're testing, meaning California wines, because we're putting the strategy to work in market and then sharing the results, what works, what doesn't, and then how we're going to adjust and sharing that with the community. And then the share is not only are we sharing out, but we're hoping that others that are already doing work in some of these spaces and experimenting will share what they're doing. And that's where the magic really happens.
So you guys are producing material? Sorry, Brian. You guys are producing material that's going to be out there, and we watch the videos to learn how to activate it, right?
You watch the videos to learn how to put it to use on your brand. Right. So this is not a campaign in a box. That's not what this is at all. This, as Mark said,
enter name of your winery here.
Right.
Put a verb here.
And I mean, you'd be
Mad
surprised.
libs.
We get asked that a lot. Like, just give us the words. Just tell us what to say. But it isn't. If it were that easy, we would have solved for that a long time ago. But this is really more about how we can empower wine marketers to ensure that their personal story is shared in a way that's engaging and compelling, in ways that's in front of the audience that they want to reach.
Right. Yeah. So what are some of the lessons that us wine marketers, whether it's single person teams or massive corporations, going to be pulling from these videos?
Oh my gosh. Okay.
Well, here's one of the things that we sometimes hear, which is, well, I don't know how to make social media
Reels
content
or whatever. Yeah.
But, we've all got phones in our pocket. That's the only studio you need, right? And one of the things that we've found, this has been true for a long time, it's especially true today, and particularly for wine, is that low production quality videos are way more authentic and therefore resonate with this audience than some highly polished, slick ad. It's an overstatement because highly polished, slick ads, which is what we've got in the UK next week, along with some less polished stuff. It still works. So advertising still works. But so one of the lessons I think for us is get comfortable pulling out your phone, like the event that you ran. What was the acronym? Sorbet. Yeah.
S.O.R.B.E. Yeah.
Thank you very much. I bet you got a ton of video there, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Right. And so chunking that up into little 10-second, 20-second pieces of people having a great time who look young and like they're having fun with a glass of wine in their hand in your feeds. If we had that across all 4,000 members of the Wine Institute, we'd already start to shift the perception of wine and showing what it looks like. So, for instance, is another these are practical things, which I hope are useful here. One of the things that you guys all do, an outsider, looking at wine as an outsider.
Us people.
Every table is beautifully set with place setting, right, with china and forks and stemware. When you talk to these people and you say, show me your living room, one of some of the photos they're showing is them drinking wine from beakers, sitting in beanbags.
Yeah.
So it doesn't look like, and they don't want it to look necessarily. Right. I mean, to Honore's point earlier, when they get there, they'll be super happy to, drop $50 on a cult cab, actually, on a good cab, and enjoy it in some stemware. But for now, meet them where they're at. So you don't have to showcase your brand in every single thing polished and buttoned down. Show it in the real world the way it's really consumed and make it less intimidating.
With real people.
I do that.
Right?
So, and then, social media, we all know about the obvious candidates like Instagram, for example, but there are smaller social media channels like Reddit, for example, even LinkedIn, where you could start to establish a presence relatively inexpensively of your own and buy ads relatively inexpensively that look and feel like they fit that social media and start to build a connection, start to reach out to people. How do you find an influencer that you want to work with? Start following some influencers whose work you like. So let's say you're into cars. Actually, cars is a bad example. Take cars off the table for all the reasons you will understand. Let's say you were into donuts. Yeah. Right? There are donut people out there on social media sharing stuff. Reach out to them. Hey, I saw you did a donut thing from Chicago, my hometown. Loved it. You know what wine pairs well with that? Open up a conversation. If that person responds to you, start sending some wine. And then you can start to build these relationships with influencers, kind of one-to-one. The bigger ones will have agents and it'll all get formal. But for a lot of the people in this room, an influencer that has a couple hundred followers in a specific geography where maybe you've just opened an account or opened a restaurant, that's gold. And it's you can do it in the way that you used to build it in years gone by. It's like hand-to-hand combat, one by one. Right. You find an influencer, you build a relationship, you develop that, they start promoting your stuff, and it gets out there, right?
It's so funny because, let's face it, we mock influencers, right?
Yeah.
But we usually mock influencers that we wouldn't want to work with, right? Because that's why you're mocking them.
Yeah.
And there probably are, if you go search for an influencer, you probably could find someone like, I like this person's style.
Yeah. And I think another, like you asked Sam, like, what are some of the things we'll learn about? We talk a lot about that this audience in particular learns from content creators, right? So it isn't just influencers that are, being paid to promote whatever product lands in their lap. These are people, whether they're professionally into it or it's just a side hobby, but they're passionate about a topic, an area of interest, and that it lines up with this audience and what they're interested in. Those are the people that we want to connect with, right? Like, again, we also dug deep into better understanding. There's some core interest areas that really resonate with this audience. Music and entertainment is one of them, right? And as is food and beverage. Yeah. And we have data to back it up. So, for example, this audience segment indexes at over 300, I think it's 324 is their index for purchasing tickets to go to food and wine events. Why is that? Because they want to be face to face with the people who are the chefs or who are making that cold cheese. They want to be face to face and they want the social experience. So that's territory that we can be in really credibly. So then you find those that are doing creating cool content online that this audience is following, and that's a really good space for us to work. Anyway, we break all of this down and we get into a lot of the detail and try to make it usable and accessible to the audience. And also we bring other people in onto our sessions. So we host the collab office hours that are designed to be exactly this, conversation around some of the topics and information that we have. We bring other people that are working in the space already, and people join in, ask questions, engage, share what they're doing. They're really great and robust.
A learning lab. How do we raise all boats in the next year or two?
So one of the interesting things that Elaine brought it up yesterday, and Louis, who I practiced his name when he was on the show, but can't pronounce it now.
Monteudis,
was sort of like getting us out of being stuck in demographic sort of brackets for who we're selling our wine to and how we're selling it to them. But it seems like this approach, what was the psychographics? Sort of like these more niche like ways in on people's lives and culture that don't necessarily have an age to them. It's just the way that they choose to spend their time, right?
Exactly. And we started with an age bracket because we needed to have a place to start.
Right.
But really the insights transcend age, because it's not about age. It's about life stage. It's about point of view, and it's about the way that people connect and engage and where they get their information. And every winery, every brand, they have their own audience that they would love to be able to reach and engage with. And I think that, as marketers, you always got to start with the information, right? Who are you trying to reach? And so that's where we started. But, the demographics are just useful. They're like signposts, right? It's the information and understanding their values, their lifestyle and interests, and then what they're watching, reading, engaging, and sharing, because that's how you connect with them. And doing it in an authentic way.
Yeah.
I can't wait to go on and start playing around.
Cool. Yeah. Come join us.
Me too.
And like we said, it's open to everybody. It's Mark and I said this information is just too good not to share. So how do we create a portal that's open? And so now our challenge is getting it out and just spreading the word. So we really appreciate that you guys invited us on today. Give us a chance to talk about it. We're hoping to see more people. The way you find it is you can go onto the Wine Institute website, which is wineinstitute.org. You click on news, which is news media, which is at the end. And then in the drop down, there's share wine. You click on that and you just get started. So
we'll make sure the link is in the show notes.
Yeah.
We have to take notes on the show notes that we have to write for this week.
But we do have, I don't know what percentage it is, but there's a high percentage of people that listen to this show that are industry or industry adjacent.
Great. Well, we welcome everybody. And honestly, the collab will only get better the more people that are involved.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, and it's just nice that we've been talking so many years about all of the problems, but now we're starting to maybe have tools or solutions that we can actually use as an industry to try and do things better.
And one that's not hire this agency for $50,000
and pay this influencer. And
Do you think there'll be an article on Wine Business after this DTC that says positive people were positive at DTC this year? Do you think?
Well, the editor's here and is moderating Jasmine's panel tomorrow, so we'll talk to her. See what we can do.
That would be great.
PR is.
Right. We're all about bringing solutions and resources, and I think that's really, honestly, that's what the collab is all about.
Yeah. Cool. So, thank you guys for doing this.
Yes, thank you.
That's the thing. That's the buzzword of this.
That's a great.
This event. Everybody. It's been in every good talk has been about collaborative. Including mine, obviously.
Yeah, we got to do it together. I mean, that's one of the great strengths of the wine community, right?
Right.
It's while we recognize it's competitive out there, our neighbors are also our friends. So we got to collaborate together and raise perception, invite everybody in. Right. So.
All right, you guys, enjoy the rest of the symposium. Enjoy whatever dinners you're going out to. Not a bad dinner last night.
Yeah, exactly. It was delicious.
Yeah.
Great wines.
Thank you guys for listening. We will talk to you next time.
Thank you.
Thank